Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry, and with me as always is.
Oh, I can't find it. God damn. No, I'm not ready. Oh, but it's genetic, isn't it? Eddie of Edward's Truth. That's just one of the quotes I wrote down.
and and yeah, we're recording this live, and we are talking about Smile, released
Yeah.
September 30th, 2022. Very, very good.
Thank you.
For anyone
Thank you.
listening, Edward is doing the what I like to call the rictus.
The rictus grin.
Yeah, that's the word of the day is rictus. It's just
I
like a like an
I like
unsettling grimace.
yeah, I like to raise my eyebrows when I do it too, so I look like Jack Nicholson at the end of The Shining.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Cre
All the more
creepy.
reason to watch this instead of listen.
Yeah. Or just
But
imagine it.
but yeah, this is a movie that's, almost 3 years old now. It's already had a sequel.
Oh, so
And
crazy.
yeah, I mean, I feel like we've been meaning to talk about this for a while, and we're just we haven't been covering a lot of like newer releases, and I mean, like we're
Yeah.
trying to change that. But yeah, it just felt fitting that like let's talk about Smile, and I haven't seen it since it came out in the theater.
Yeah, I didn't
So
see it in the theater. I
okay,
streamed it and lost my shit. And then that this is my second screening for our purposes, just so I can get it
yeah,
fresh in my head. And it did me, this movie. I'll just say
interesting. Okay,
that.
so. All right. Well, before we get into anything like that, where can people watch Smile?
It actually has been available for quite some time on Paramount Plus if you want to stream. It's also streaming. It just dropped on Netflix as well as of the time of this recording. Or you can
Ooh.
find it for individual rental, like I did on Apple TV. Or if you're one of those physical media biatches like I'm trying to be and Zach has always been,
Mhm.
there were two releases, a 4K Blu-ray combo and a Blu-ray that were released in 2022. Or more recently in 2023, there was a Steelbook 4K that has, it's an interesting cover. It's like, I don't know if you can, for the people who are watching, if you can see, it's like an upside down
Oh, nice.
but it what it evokes to me less so than memories of the film. It actually kind of makes me think about those chin puppets that where people put like goo goo eyes on their chin and turn
Oh,
upside down and wear like a little bow tie and a suit on their face. So
yeah.
and they sit there and do all this weird kind of tongue action and it just looks strange.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm getting from the
Okay.
steelbook cover. No
Nice.
shade if you own one and you like it. Do you have it? Do you own it?
No, I had to rent it from like Apple as well.
Mm,
And
cool.
because it was just I don't have Paramount Plus currently and I don't have Netflix. So it just
Yeah.
made more sense to just rent it. But
Yeah.
I So I really liked the movie when I saw it in the theater, and I think I had every intention of buying it on physical media, but then I saw that they didn't package the Blu-ray and the 4K together.
Oh,
And yeah, and I was just like, oh, well, that was kind of a deterrent. And I never
oh,
thought to like go back and find it. But would I own it now, like after
oh
rewatching it?
no.
I don't know. I'm very discerning these days about like physical media collecting. Like there's,
Oh,
I used to just like get everything and at this point, and especially like just for the purposes of the podcast, but it's just not very relevant anymore.
yeah.
But yeah, like I just try to buy the new releases that I really love. Like I'll buy like older movies too, but I mean, you know how I feel about newer horror. Like there's just like few and far between that like really kind of speak to me. So it's just like I have Last Night in Soho, obviously X and Pearl. I still don't have Maxine.
Mm.
I still don't have all of the Halloween movies. Like I don't have Halloween Ends. Not that like the new trilogy are movies like more recent movies that spoke to me, but I'm a completionist, so I would want to have all the Halloween movies, but I still haven't, you know, taken the plunge on the Halloween Ends
I I,
4K. We're
I just ordered just the Blu-ray because it came with a slipcover.
yeah.
Just because it's going to be, I've been reordering all the Halloween movies on like 4K Blu-ray combos, and
Yeah.
that was the only one that I didn't already have that I didn't make it a point to buy, and I found it real cheap on eBay, brand
Hmm.
new. So there you go. Yeah, we're
I,
weird.
I'll
We're t turning the tables here.
I'll get it eventually. It's just like I have all the ones because you actually got them earlier today.
Uh,
The Shout Factory ones with like
oh,
the thicky cases.
yeah, three,
Um,
four, and five. Yeah.
yeah, like I think 1 to 8 are available. So those are like
Hmm.
the ones I care about. I mean I don't care about Resurrection. Like for me, Halloween is like the first 7 movies, and then everything after that
Sure.
is just like I'm glad it's there, but it's not my Halloween, you
But
know?
6, 7, 8 are in that box set, so you really have no choice.
Yeah.
So I own Resurrection now, and I think I told you earlier today, I now know more about it than I ever have or ever cared to.
Yeah.
After it's a half-star movie I gave on Letterboxd, and I
Yeah.
and now I own it. So
Yeah,
there you go.
very good. Just a little fun trivia because Brianna is typed this in the comments is that
Yes.
speaking of Jack Nicholson, because you did
Yeah.
the little impression, his son, I think his name is
Yeah.
Ray Nicholson, he is in Smile 2.
Yeah.
And like they look alike, and I mean like they have like the same
Yes.
face, you know,
Facial structure,
they
yes.
can do that smile the same. So
Uh-huh.
interesting that maybe that's why he was cast, because they're just like, oh, you can do the
Oh,
Jack Nicholson
because
grin.
people will talk about it till the end of time. They talked about it in the promotional material, and we're talking about it now. It will be talked
Yeah.
about again. Yeah, I think it's a good just. Oh, and did you hear about that? You know, like it's a good talking point
Yeah.
to get people forever discussing the movie. Lump it in
Yeah.
with somebody else's, not lore, but I guess just franchise, because there's more
Yeah.
to discuss.
Absolutely. Okay, so before we get into this, because I have a feeling you like this movie a lot more than I do. Um, I have a lot of good things to say.
Good.
Um, but let's just talk a little bit about what's going on here. So, hey, if you have been watching slash listening to the Cherry Picker for a while, if you're brand new here, we've changed things up a little bit recently. So we are now recording all of these episodes live. So if you are watching the video on YouTube, you'll see the chat box in the center. So everyone who is supporting me and the podcast on Patreon, which is my Patreon. So patreon.com/Zack Cherry, ZACKCHERRY. If you are supporting at the Freddy Krueger tier, you have access to join us and interact with us during this. So you can push back if you don't agree with us. You can just be like,
Yeah.
yeah, what? Or if you agree with us, let us know. Or if you have fun facts about it, or you just want to be part of the conversation, come over onto
Yeah.
Patreon and support at the Freddy Krueger tier. That's $5 a month, and you'll get to join us every Monday night as we record these, and then the episodes are released the day later. And we're not doing the Cherry Picker After Dark anymore. Instead, what we're doing is the Patreon choice episode, and this is for everyone to watch or listen to. But as a Patreon supporter of the Freddy Krueger tier, you will get to nominate a movie that you want us to cover. And
Mhm.
at the first week of the month, we will put that into a poll, and whichever movie wins, or whomever chose that particular movie wins based on all of the votes, that is going to be the movie that we cover for the fourth episode of the month. And
Yeah.
that's coming up next week. And as it happens, we do have a winner. So next week, we are actually going to be talking about Companion, a very
Yay.
new release. And this
Yeah.
was nominated by Sean Conley. So thank you very much, Sean. You are
Good
the
show.
winner this month. And yeah, received 19% of the votes, which was
Hey, hey,
enough
hey,
to
hey.
to win that for us. But thank you to all Patreon supporters for coming over and just being part of this. And I do want to shout out my top tiers. So to the Michael Myers supporters, thank you to Kyle Beard, Maxime Rivest, Ali Hamouche, Shane Allingham, Tim McKay, Stephanie Starbright, Horace Let 95, Traj 125, Bruce the Genetic, Jackhammer Rando, Gary Blasick, Michael Boswell, and then thank you to the Ghostface supporters, Eric Champney, Sam Levy, Daniel Saturn, Baby Ghoul, Garrison Nichols, and Craig Lynn. So thank you very much to all of y'all. And a lot of those people are here right now with us as well. So,
Yay.
we look forward to chatting with you. So, with all that said, do you have a premise for us, Edward?
Yeah, I do. I just ripped it off IMDb, so don't.
Excellent.
I added something at the end. I'm
Ooh.
sure you can tell what it is.
Oh, okay.
Um, After witnessing a bizarre, traumatic incident involving a patient, a psychiatrist becomes increasingly convinced that she is being threatened by an uncanny entity with a smile. Ah?
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. That was easy.
Yeah. And I'm sure, and you can always do like this smile too.
Yeah,
But when it comes to threes, because you had that issue last week with Final
gets
Destination,
tricky.
it's just
Gets
like,
tricky, yeah.
how do you
Mm.
do that? Yeah. Four,
Fo-
I feel like, you can work that in. Like,
Yeah.
what's
Uh,
this Final Destination for?
it's
Or,
actually helping that like more
mm,
sequels are just not eliminating the number completely and just putting a term like underneath as
mhm.
the sequel, so you can find a way to like weave that in. But yeah, we'll see.
I feel like because it was a thing where probably after, I mean, even before Scream came about,
Hmm.
because Scream was like one of the first that's just like, whatever, we're gonna do the numbers. Because it was like studios were just like, you have a number, it's just less and less people show up to see the movies because it's like, do I have to see one through whatever number? And then that's why we
Right.
had like the remake era where everything was the same. And then of course, like, we're talking about Halloween 2018, where it's just like we're gonna call it Halloween again because
Jesus
we have to
Christ.
confuse people because they're make them
Hmm.
think that this is you don't have to watch anything else. Just come right aboard. And then I think it was like the Fast and Furious franchise because like that does not apply to them at all. Everything is
Hmm.
like a weird number or something like the fate of the Furious with like F8. Like things like that. And I mean those movies just make all the money in the world, so it's been debunked, we'll say.
Yeah. And then they
Yeah.
did Alien Cubed after Aliens, which was a perfect
Yeah.
title to follow Alien. I wonder how you would just pluralize it even more so after that. Just like Alien World, Alien Planet. I don't know to make it
There's
sound like
a
there's
well,
more of
there's
them.
a television series coming out
And what is that one
this
called?
Alien Earth, and it's starring
Hey.
our favorite Timothy Oliphant.
Oh, your favorite. Okay.
Oh, okay, sure.
If it were Laurie Metcalf, I'd be right there with you. But anyway.
Imagine if she like had a guest spot on that. I would love to see the two of them work together again.
Playing the mother of some character named Billy, just so
Yeah.
Timothy Olyphant could go, Billy's mother.
You know what? Like that reminds me because I met her last year
Yeah.
at Calgary Expo, and I didn't like I should have asked her about like working with Timothy. But we talked about everything else. She declared, she's just like, don't I have the best ghost face reveal? And it's just like, obviously. So
Love her.
yeah,
Oh
it's
my
just like,
God.
did I wonder if she's seen the other movies and she knows that for a fact, or she's just sort of like, it's like, who's gonna do it better than me?
Either way, I'll take it. I appreciate
Yeah,
both.
yeah, absolutely. But we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about Smile.
Yes.
So, yeah, let's get into it because
Okay. Shall I start with something I appreciate about it?
yeah, let's talk about the good.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing that I didn't notice it so much the first time, and I think it usually makes me weep when I see horror movies in particular these days, and that is like kind of the legacy now of the drone shot. I feel like every time I see one, I feel like I'm watching a movie with a budget try to look expensive, and it's usually used in the least inventive way because it's just kind of like drifting over trees, and,
Mm.
or following a car. And this one actually kind of does that, but I love that it opens with this. After Carl's Manic episode, there's this God's eye view shot of the hospital, just kind of like watching I think it's the ambulance arrive with Laura on it, with on the gurney as they wheel
Mm.
her in. So it's like the story is being brought to the hospital where our protagonist is waiting for us, and we drift from that basically like to her window. And there's something about the use of this continual shot throughout the movie to establish, because the next time we see it, I can't remember. It's after Rose sees Laura's apparition in her kitchen,
Mm.
and oh wait, oh, is that where it is?
It's in the kitchen, yeah.
I can't even decode my own writing. But anyway,
It's in
there's
a dark corner of the house.
yeah, but I don't know if that's
Yeah.
the moment that I. Anyway, there's another one that comes later, basically, where she's been quote unquote infected, and the shot starts to go off kilter a little bit to make you disoriented, which then carries into like her walking into a room, Rose walking into a room, also disoriented, not quite knowing like what to make of things. I think it's actually sooner in the movie, probably like right after the death
Yeah.
occurs in front of her. And throughout the movie, it slowly just kind of like tilts completely upside down until like the second half of the movie, the establishing shots are completely upside down just to imply that this death demon or whatever, or not even death, but the smile demon
Yeah.
is uh is in control and has been for like some time. Like it doesn't shift for the back half of the movie, which I don't know, I kind of appreciated just
Mm.
this through line of and this thoughtfulness with something that I have come to really loathe in horror movies, particularly contemporary horror movies. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's lending itself to the storytelling. I like it. So yeah.
And you're talking about just like sort of like the overhead shot of the car
Yeah,
twisting down the so
it
like
can
the shining
right.
over yeah.
Which actually I still watch in The Shining, and it's still I find breathtaking because there's something about, particularly when you watch it in like Blu-ray or
Yeah.
4K, like you the just the vista in and of
Well,
itself. But
yeah.
the it create it all, if it all builds towards something, even in just like a mood that isn't just too often, it just feels like it's drifting. Like I may as well just be watching someone's reel on Instagram. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's
No,
no
it's just
point of view.
I'm sure we've seen it like any movie where like it was probably in like the Evil Dead uh 2013 but
Mm,
just any movie where there's like a group of whomever driving somewhere but yeah
yeah.
the one in The Shining like there's a lot of swooping there because it starts like closer to the water and this was you know obviously
Yeah.
helicopter
Yeah.
but yeah we're sort of just like going down the winding road until like the overlook is revealed and I mean, I what I like about the usage of just the camera work that you're talking about here is that it does feel like it's giving us more. It feels like this the movie has like a unique signature. And I think that
Mm.
mostly I get that from the sound design. I think that the movie
Hmm.
sound in movie is one of the most important things. And like this is something that Eric and I have really come to understand over like the last 3 months as we've like, you know, gone through post-production on Macabre, the movie that we
Hmm.
made,
Yeah.
where it's just like it's there's so much like painstaking detail that goes into it and like everything like it's so important because you know as we know with like Halloween like the score like the movie's not the same without it and like just like
Yeah.
every little element and like what I love about the score here is that like there's jump scares in the movie
Yeah.
and like a lot of them are very traditional jump scares but they don't bother me the same way because it's somehow like there's this transition that it'll do like there's one where it's just like she's laying in bed and like you see the figure which I'm guessing is Laura or her
Right.
mother standing in the doorway and then
Yeah.
there's like it screams her name and then we're like in the street as the cars
Yes.
pulling up and honking so there's so many things like even when she's at the birthday party and all the
Yeah.
sound kind of like drowns out and it's just like building up this tension you know like something really
Hmm.
bad is going to happen so I found like those were the most effective parts of the movie so I think that you know what I would give Parker Finn a lot of credit for here is just the way that like he builds this very like immersive experience with the way that the camera is moving and the way that we're
Hmm.
listening to things and how that sort of you know, matches, but sometimes like doesn't match. Like it just like contrasts as well, and it just like really kind of lends to just the overall like weird feeling that
Yeah.
is you know over everything. And for me, like really, that's probably most of the praise that I have for
Okay.
the movie. Because
Okay, because I
yeah,
agree in terms of Parker Finn. Like, I think that's actually probably a really good way of looking at it, is that him
yeah,
taking things that have been used before that are, pretty, par the course now. But there's something, he doesn't necessarily reinvent them. I think he just employs them in a way that only really kind of like serves my experience of the movie. Like you brought up the jump scares. There's that one once she starts wrapping the gift, we'll get there.
hmm
But we get the first jump scare just with the security alarm going off, and and I was like, okay, this is a jump scare, but it feels like a less cheap attempt at unsettling me and more like one additional thing for her to feel anxious about, and then it builds because then there's the reveal that her back door is open. That's what set the alarm off. Then the phone ringing, and that jars her. And then when she's talking on the phone, the voice saying like, "Are you alone in the house?" And she goes, "Yes." And it says, "Are you sure? Look behind you." And it's like just one thing after another just to kind of like turn the volume up of
hmm
your own anxiety. I don't know why I like it, but as a horror fan, obviously, like if a movie is doing me like that, then
yeah,
I'm down. I like that I got to empathize enough with also Rose as the protagonist to the point where I could like feel whatever anxiety she was feeling as it
yeah.
was just like raking up. But I also like the fact that I didn't. It was effective without being monotonous. That's another tightrope walk. Is like when somebody's going through something that's kind of unbearable. If it is unbearable, truly unbearable, you run the risk of it being unbearable for your audience. We've said this on the pod before, and I don't ever find this movie unbearable as a moviegoer. I find it just unbearable because I'm so involved in like what's going on with Rose, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't find it unbearable, but I do, towards especially like the last act, that's where the notes kick in. But
Okay.
to the point of like the jump scares, another thing I wanted to say is like none of them are ever really surprising. Like it's just like I feel like it's telegraphed in a way like like when she's like looking at the on her laptop and like listening to the session and we're
Sure.
looking at the sound line
Yeah.
and it's just like she's leaning in and like there's a jump scare coming.
Yeah.
And even though it's still like you're expecting it, it still
Hmm.
works. Like there's still like because you're just listening for it. And so when it actually does hit, it's like it's quite jarring. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that like they can take these cliches and somehow still make them effective. And I remember
Hmm.
seeing this in the theater because there was like people sitting in front of me. And when that moment happened in particular, and like most of the jump scares, like the one guy would like rock back in his chair. And like I felt it too, because it's almost like you're getting like blown back by the sound design of everything and how
Hmm.
effective it is.
Yeah.
So I do really like that about it. You did mention the I guess sort of like just these are things that we've seen before, but we're just kind of like I guess the presentation is new because I think that if there is criticism, that I don't know if like it's necessarily criticism, but like I guess the story itself is very much like The Ring.
Right.
Have you heard that? Like it's almost like
Oh yeah.
not entirely verbatim, but it's the same kind of setup, the same sort of like week-long curse
Hmm.
sort of thing. And I haven't seen The Ring in a really long time, but I was just wondering if like maybe you had seen it more recently and you had
Yeah,
something
this
to
past
speak
year.
to.
Well,
Yeah.
this past year in particular, the first thing that made it come to mind was the same thing that made two other franchises come to mind. I also thought about It Follows, and of course, Nightmare on Elm Street, in the sense that like
Yeah.
you've got something that's depending on you to pass it on, so it can spread like a like a virus.
hmm
Um, but again, like because I started wondering, like, is there anything earlier, any ex example earlier than those that I can think of? In terms of it spreading like a virus. Like, I mean, oftentimes zombie movies take on that viral kind of like scientific route, but this zombie movies are kind of like their own thing. I feel like even in its bleakness, this movie is closer to the titles I mentioned than any Night
Yeah.
of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead or any of those.
Yeah. I mean, there's even
Yeah.
like some Final Destination in there as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I got more of that too. But the biggest thing in terms of the connectivity because it's almost like a game of telephone by the means of passing it on.
Yeah.
I just yeah, that's definitely what evoked like The Ring. It follows Nightmare on Elm Street, like something that ultimately like depends on you. So ultimately, like I think the biggest question, and this does come up in Final Destination as well, eventually, or in in select chapters, like, well, what if you took yourself out of the equation and you could, so you were no longer like something that could pass it on, or as it's introduced in this movie, because that's not really even really put out there as an option. It's in my head while I'm watching it, but I'm
Hmm.
thinking like, okay, but the thing that's pushed forth front and center is taking someone else out, which also has been introduced in Final Destination.
In the
But
fifth one, yeah.
right, right,
Well,
right.
I
But
mean, that's an interesting thing because it's almost like, I guess you'd have to really explore the protagonist's will to live. And if there isn't, it's almost like, okay, I can take myself out for the greater good, but you'd have to
mhm,
do it in like an isolated place where there's no one around to witness that.
yeah.
Because like essentially, like with that, not like just destroy the demon, and there's like then it has nowhere else or like no host to attach itself to.
Yeah, but that's kind of like one of the biggest questions. I think there's two for me with this movie
Yeah,
that I almost can't help thinking about, which is like when Rose goes to the gentleman who was able to dodge it by obviously like killing someone, and he tells
yeah.
her without knowing who she is. I just it made me wonder like, well, if you were in that situation, you Zach. Like, what would you do if you knew it could skip over you by killing someone else? Would you like try to be strategic about it, like go Dexter level and try to take someone out who deserves it or who has a miserable life like she was, I think, assuming with Carl? Or would
Yeah.
you try to take yourself out of the equation if you were in her shoes?
Well, I'm gonna give you the Jamie Lee Curtis answer to that by not actually answering that question, but like using that to segue into what I wanted to say, because there's a very interesting thing that I noticed this time of watching it and like her response to that. And this just for context, this is the part of the movie that kind of like where it loses the plot for me. And I think like right as
Uh,
before, like when they're going on this like trip to find this guy, because she's sitting in the the holding room with or the
mm,
whatever behind the glass and talking to him, and he says like what you have to do, and she reacts to it, and she's just like, I can't kill anyone, and it's almost like in like any other movie, that's sort of like a key of just like, well, you're lying to yourself. And like you
mm,
can actually like you do have it in you to kill someone, but you're like protesting right now, but there's still more days left, or there's still more time to be harassed by this demon that might drive you
mm,
to that. And the thing is, like, she says I can't do that, and the thing is, it's like it's true, she can't, she's unable to. And I found that that was where things got very uninteresting to me because it just sort of rendered that whole loophole kind of pointless to this movie, and it felt like
uh,
we were just wasting time. Just it was more just like, for her and Kyle Gallner to connect and go down here, and that guy, it amounted to nothing. And she did have the thing where it's just like, okay, she's envisioning herself going to the hospital
mhm.
and stabbing poor whatever his name is,
Carl.
and Carl, sure. And it just it made me think of like what would be a more interesting, because this is what I do. I always like think like how can I you know change the movie to suit what I would
Sure,
appreciate
sure.
seeing instead. And I felt like everything up until that point in the movie was really building towards something. I think that like all of the pieces were, just like with how unsettling it was, it just felt like something was going to happen. And I feel like there really is no payoff by the end of the movie. She goes to her childhood home, and
Yeah.
there's just sort of like, I guess like this is a thing that I don't like about modern horror, where it's just like everything is like connected to trauma or going back to like trauma and like the whole thing with like her mother. And I felt like the movie, it felt so disconnected from anything that mattered with that. Like, yeah, we saw like a few sequences which I guess were her like dreams or her flashbacks, and she had like the conversations with her sister, and it's like, you have mental illness in your family, but it felt like very tacked on, and it didn't feel earned. to me that I wish that it hadn't done the trauma route. I don't think that the movie needed to. What I would have really
Oh.
appreciated
Mhm.
actually is if she did go the route of just like, okay, I have to kill someone, and it's the only way to do this. And she went ahead and like her sleazy fiance and tried to kill him, and almost like a way of like I'm thinking of like Thinner, like when because he's cursed with the thing, and he like bakes the pie and gives it to his adulterous wife. But
Yeah.
if it was like something like that, because it's like she has a connection to this guy. We as an audience have a connection to him just like through their pre-existing relationship. Carl
Yeah.
is like a nobody. He's like a patient of hers in the hospital, and we know that she cares about her patients and all that, but it's just like it it would have been more effective. It's just like imagine her just like here's this guy who was supposed to be the love of my life. We were gonna get married, and then like suddenly something bad happened and it wasn't like he couldn't handle it. So what would have been interesting is like if she turned the tables and just like, you know what, I'm okay with killing him because of what he did to me. And I think that building up to that would have been just like her mental unraveling
Uh,
if that had been like moving towards that by the end of the movie.
you're making me realize that the third act could have really done, because I don't necessarily agree from my own experience with the movie about like what happens in the final act, because it actually I'll tell you about why it works for me in a
Yeah.
little bit. But before I do that, one thing that is actually curving me in your direction is now I'm thinking like, oh my God, how hilarious slash entertaining and interesting from a moral quandary area would it have been
Yeah.
if she just kept getting trying to kill someone but kept getting stifled for reasons that are inescapable, that an audience would be like, well, you can't kill him now. And like, I mean, like, or make like one attempt and she has to do it fast because like the cops are on her tail, and
Yeah.
they're trying to anticipate where her next place is going to be. So like if she had moved on to Carl, like I thought like, okay, so she's going to move on to Carl, to her boss, because he was kind of shitty to her. Maybe she doesn't mind
Yeah.
taking him out of the equation, her
Yeah.
boss played by Cal Penn. Or then I also think like they planted a seed. I don't think for her sister, we'll get to that, but like certainly with her sister's brother, her brother-in-law, Greg.
Yeah.
The piece is shit. Like this is great. Like we're talking contenders for like cherry picker here, but
Yeah.
but I mean, just like what a loss. Like an absolute, completely shallow person in terms of everything we are exposed to. Like I didn't even understand what was motivating the sister to be with him outside of like what she gets confronted by from Rose about like the whole reason she's trying to attain this suburban idealistic lifestyle.
Mhm.
But if she could just keep going, trying to like find someone who it made sense why she should kill them, and then getting thwarted, so now she has to move on to the next one. If it could have even just been like three people, that might have
Yeah.
been interesting to see.
Well, it's like you bring up a good point is that like she goes to the hospital and she's hallucinating this whole thing and she's stabbing Carl and
Hmm,
Calpen
hmm.
comes in and she just keeps doing it and it's sort of like I get that there's this mental unraveling. She is
Yeah,
not well, but there's got to be a strategy to this because it's just like do do I want to like be like succumb to this demon entity or whatever, like it's gonna make me kill myself, or am I
yeah.
going to destroy my life by killing someone in front of like everyone, like at the place where I work where there's video surveillance cameras, like there's no way that she's going to get away with this, or would she be more strategic about it? So that's like my roundabout way of just answering your question. I just feel like there was, you know, at least d despite her mental state, there was still some sort of like logic that could have been put into this, or just like to connect her as a character and with the audience, and just like there's still you're still trying to survive. You're not just like going out there and just like making a random move to make a random move. So I feel that
Oh,
yeah, there would have been an interesting thing if she was just sort of, even if she was like had the conversation with Kyle Gallner, Joel, and been like, this is what we have to do. And then that could have been like a moral dilemma for him as
yeah.
a cop. And then like, let's like find a person for you to do this to. And I felt like there was all the pieces were in place. Like the building blocks were set up with these
Hmm.
characters to do that. And then the movie just went like the most basic, like trauma, you know, induced
Well,
route.
it didn't feel like such an abrupt. Now we'll talk about that. It didn't feel like such an
Yeah.
abrupt turn for me because, well, because that's another thing. You mentioned The Ring. And the thing that differentiates this from The Ring is that The Ring is like, okay, the tape's gonna fall into the wrong hands inevitably, no matter what you do. Some idiot's gonna pick it up, play it, not know what it means, and that's gonna happen to them. And
Yeah.
then if they try to warn someone, it's useless because they already watched it, kind of thing. Like it's almost kind of like it's almost a comment I feel on maybe a curiosity killed the cat kind of tale, you know? Like you
Yeah.
can't we as a people cannot help but just like find some kind of like random thing in the middle of nowhere. And I don't mean all of us, but if 1 in 100 does it, that's enough. Because how many hundreds of people are existing on Earth who are going to play that damn tape that they found in some dead person's library
Yeah.
or on the bus station or, you know, like whatever. So,
The thing that's funny about The Ring though is like that because that came out 2002. I mean, I guess the original
mhm.
Japanese Ringu
Right,
was 1998,
right.
but it's still like we were already on like the precipice of DVD
Yeah.
format. So it's like, and I believe like 2006 was the last time that VHS was like properly distributed as like a
Hmm.
release for movies. So it's sort of like The Ring comes out and they're like making this big to do about like videotapes. And it's like, yeah, that's how you do. You pass along the videotape. And now we're in an era where like the ring demon is like stuck in, I mean, I guess in the well, but like also in the videotape, which is like nobody's watching that. Nobody has a VCR
But they found a
because
way around that, or they tried to in Rings, and it did not work for me.
oh,
I
did
actually,
they
I,
did they
I,
update it to streaming?
I don't even remember. I think it just got like burned, and then it was like,
Yeah.
was it in the internet? I don't even remember. That
I
movie's so
didn't I didn't
forgettable.
see it. Yeah.
It's not worth it, but
Yeah.
you'll be angry at yourself for watching it
Yeah.
if you
I
watch it.
I did just want to read
Yes.
Amethyst's comment. He says that's what frustrates him about the Smile films is that the protagonists know what they need to do and attempt to do it, but the entity just makes them hallucinate until it wins.
Well, okay. So let's. I started to talk about like how it's different from The Ring because The Ring is just kind of like stupidity
Yeah.
slash curiosity and how it can't be evaded. It follows is much more like the STD kind of like
Hmm.
what's the word I'm looking for? Not fable, but you
Virus?
know what I'm saying. No, but like STD like motif for lack of a
Okay,
better
like a
word. Yeah.
morality
Well, yeah,
tale. Yeah.
like you're just going to pass something. It's going to happen to you, and it's going to continue to follow you until it consumes you, unless you pass it on to someone, or unless you allow it to consume you, because then where is it going to go? But nobody wants that to happen because it's fucking scary. So they'll
Hmm.
continue to just like have sex with someone and pass it on, and then just good luck.
Well,
But
with It
so
Follows,
yeah,
sorry, I just to clarify the context of it, because doesn't it like it just works backwards. So if like you passed it on to someone, it's with them, and then it's their job to continue passing it on. And if they
yeah,
die, it just goes back to the person that gave it to them. So it's sort of like
right,
you're constantly trying to like move the chain along.
right,
So
right,
if you
right.
if you allow yourself to die, you like you're dead, but then like the person who gave it to you is now in
Right.
jeopardy again.
So so again, it's more like an ethical dilemma in the sense of like what kind of person do you want to be? Do you want to be the kind is your life worth someone else's life and then them having to like carry it like for the rest of their days until
Yeah.
they pass it on to someone else and then where does it end? Like that seems much more like a kind of like I don't know, like population morality tale. But
Yeah.
then like about us as a community, we are a society kind of thing. But with
Hmm.
this one, it feels much more along the lines of because you bring up the word trauma, and we laugh at that word a lot because think
Hmm.
again, Jamie Lee Curtis kind of like put it in quotes for us, but but
It's
I
all her
feel
fault.
it's all Jamie Lee's fault.
Yeah.
But for saying it so often in her promotional material for the new Halloween trilogy.
Yeah.
But with this one, I feel like the thematically because you're literally passing trauma on like a person doesn't know what they're absorbing, they just know that they're absorbing like a horrific thing that they have to witness and then they feel like they have to recover, so it's almost like this smile demon can be a metaphor, an active metaphor for what it is to try and evade trauma or how it's just going to trigger things in your past. And there's one thing in particular that I really liked that made me feel like it was a decision that they made with this movie that I don't see a lot of movies making, which is to find other ways to plant the themes, to just kind of like visually show me like what story it is that you're telling. And for me, with this one, it was after after another jump scare where you think one thing's going to happen and another thing happens when
Mhm.
Rose and Holly have their fight on her porch. We'll talk about that in a
Yeah.
minute. But then she goes back into the car and you see Holly, but you don't see you see her body moving toward the car, and you know she's probably going to like lower, and it's probably going to be the smile, it's probably going to freak Rose out. But it's not that; it's her head dipping upside down,
The neck is
and
just sort of like dangled. Yeah.
oh, yes, broken neck lady, just like grimacing at you. And I'm like, oh, okay, didn't see that coming. That was a jump scare that I thought I knew what was happening, and then you showed me, and I was kind of like, ah, okay, I don't like that.
Mhm.
I mean, I like it cinematically, but I wouldn't want to be sitting in that car. But then we see that it disappears, and that she's just kind of like reeling from it, Rose, in the driver's seat. And as the camera pulls away and just kind of pans to see young Jackson, the kid who got
The
the
nephew.
kitty for
Yeah.
the president, yeah, the nephew, watching from the window, and I just felt like, oh my God, you're just illustrating a point about how we can't really escape passing on certainly intergenerational trauma, like we're doomed as whether we're parents or aunts or grandparents or whatever influence we have on the generation beyond us, no matter what we do, something along the lines is going to influence the next generation in a way that isn't entirely positive. Let's put it that way. And
Hmm.
I don't know, there was something about witnessing that, like bringing it back to the kid absorbing trauma, because that's what Rose did. And also, that was the same problem with Laura because she witnessed her grandfather die when she was 7 years old. And that was something that the smile demon gained access to in her mind and started to use against her in her,
Yeah.
and she confessed to in front of
So
Rose.
do
So
you
I,
think that
yeah,
perhaps there's a I guess within the franchise, and I don't know, like based on Smile too, but that the demon seeks it because that's the thing, it can decide where and when and in front of whom it's going to, kill the current host and pass it along to.
uh-huh.
So does it look for people who already have pre-existing trauma and attach itself to them? because
I
I'm because I
wonder.
feel like what's her face in the sequel, and we don't have to talk too much about the sequel, at least in terms of like plot points. I wouldn't want to spoil it, but
Sure.
she definitely had some shit that she was dealing with prior
Yeah.
to the thing. So it's like, it's not just like incidental. Like the demon must be looking for people that it might deem as like weaker willed, like someone that it can like kind of control a little bit more, or like be able to trick in terms of
Right.
like these, are you having a vision or is this like actually happening?
That's certainly a point of view that could be argued this movie's putting forth, but I think there's also another one that maybe it's making the point that this can happen to anyone because anyone can have buttons pushed, anyone can be triggered by something. We all have something that this demon could unpack for us that would ultimately just kind of amplify the unraveling that's already going on inside of our
Yeah.
head, because that's certainly what happens with her, because that was the thing, that was the thing that I liked about the third act, was the fact that like Rose, when she went back to her Evil Dead cabin, and I love that that's what's on her family property, but anyway, she goes to
Hmm.
her cabin, which they mentioned before, and the fact that it starts to be almost, and again, to bring up Nightmare on Elm Street again, like almost like a Nancy, like kind of like I take away every bit of power I gave you, kind of thing. Not exactly, but
Yeah.
just the fact that this thing is saying like you can't escape what's in your head, and she says, and neither can you, and it's my mind, and watching her take her power back. You know me, I love when there's a push and pull, at least on the surface level, between the people we're rooting for, or the victims, the people who are being subjected to the violence and the trauma, and the people who are, or the forces that are inflicting it. I like watching the two of them go lock horns, and that's what was going on there, in a way. But also, uh, I like the fact that it was all an illusion. Even knowing that that's what was going on this time, I wasn't bored knowing what the reveal was, that she was going to like think she's running out of Joel's apartment, but she never left the cabin. So when
Hmm.
she runs out in the cabin and everything like that, I don't know, there was something I got about watching her conf that's the thing that I loved about it. The fact that she confronted her trauma, felt empowered by it, felt like she defeated, the demon, slain the dragon, and as it were, or whatever, and then
Slew.
moved on. Yeah, slew, and then moved on to make herself as vulnerable as possible to the person who she felt intrinsically the closest to, who was Joel, the only one who had her back, and the only person she ever really needed to protect herself from, because he was the only one who really wanted to get to her. And the second she did that, it should be in our realm of consciousness like a very empowering, very strength inducing act.
Hmm.
But it's something that the demon can now exploit because the demon thrives on vulnerability. It's like, thanks for showing me all that, because I'm always gonna be with you, kind of a thing. I don't know, there's something
Mm.
so incredibly dark about that that I feel really close to.
That's
If that
fair.
makes sense. Yeah. So
No,
I mean,
absolutely. And there,
I enjoy that turn. I enjoy that turn.
yeah, and you mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street, and there's also the hallucinations are also kind
Mm.
of akin to that because we talked about especially with Nightmare 1, like when does the dream start and end? Like, is the whole
Yeah.
movie been a dream? And it feels like that with a lot of the scenes where it's just like, how do you know what's real and what's not? Like maybe the whole week has been like she's been dreaming ever since like she witnessed Laura kill herself in the room there. So
Hmm.
there's a lot to play with. I'm glad that they didn't overdo that because I think that that's kind of like a really worn out trope and it's kind of frustrating. Like it's almost like the Halloween 2 Rob Zombie of like how many times does Scout Taylor Compton like wake up screaming in bed only to like wake up from another nightmare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but also, I mean, to Amethyst's point about like the smoke, the gauze of the haze that it creates, the hysteria that it
Yeah.
just kind of like puts you in where you're questioning reality and everything like that. Maybe I don't know if that's strength of the piece or if, and it's something that he did really well, or just a button that actually really works for me too. I remember, and I don't remember if I've talked about it on the pod before or not, but I had a friend, Nick, who we were talking about supernatural experiences because I've had not what I would label supernatural experiences, but things that I certainly can't explain away with
Yeah.
logic. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And so maybe it's supernatural. I don't know. I don't make the rules. And his was like, that's interesting. He says, I hear a lot of people like go there when they talk about that. And he says, nothing's ever happened to me, but if it ever did, the first place I'd go to would not be the supernatural route. The first place I'd go to is to question my own mind. I'd wonder, am
Mhm.
I losing it? Do I need to regulate this with medication or psychiatry or, something?
Yeah.
And I remember the first time he told me that without judgment, he told me that without judgment. I remember thinking like, oh, that is terrifying. If I have to start worrying if what I'm perceiving is what I'm actually perceiving, that's scarier than being in a nightmare realm where I know exactly where I am.
Hmm.
If I don't know what's going on, that's why things like, I don't want to go too realistic and dark here,
Yeah.
but anything that's going to allow me to disconnect from this, it's just kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't know how I'd fare. I don't know how I'd fare with that.
I mean, it did seem like they were going that route in a way, like 'cause she goes
Mm,
to her therapist and like wants the script, the prescription.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so it felt like it was like, she was already possibly leaning into like the supernatural aspect of it
Hmm.
too. So that's why it felt like a little um disconnected or just like they had spread it out a little too far into the film. Like I think by that point she would have known, okay, something supernatural is happening.
Mm,
But JR said something interesting. So yes, the trauma is the main thing that the smiling demon latches onto. That's why the
yeah.
movie starts with Rose's mom. That is her
Hmm.
trauma, which is why I prefer this character over the one in Smile 2.
Oh.
So I'm curious. Do you think that that's what we see? I guess like in the very opening of the movie
Hmm.
is Laura, not Laura's, Rose's mom.
Yeah.
Is she dealing with a smile demon, do you think, or is that just coincidental?
No, I don't think that the mother is dealing with the smile demon. I think the mother's just like fallen prey to her own it sounds like mental illness, and it sounds
Yeah.
like there was some kind of like substance abuse there too. Like she's like, I made a mistake, so I don't know if that means OD'd or alcohol poisoning or whatever it
Yeah.
was. She was in need of medical attention, and her daughter was 10 years old, terrified of her, and decided, see, that's the second big question that I will not put to you. But that was the second big question where I just kind of felt like I'm in the character's shoes and I'm learning, oh my God, if I were 10 years old and my mother was this just absolute nightmare to be around, again, without judgment, like, you're a nightmare, looking down my nose at her, just like, you're supposed to be my mother, you're supposed to take care of me, you're supposed to protect me from things, and here you are in our house within these four walls, like terrifying me, asking me for help. And who knows, this the feel I got from the look of the young actress, I didn't look up her name, but the one who plays young Rose, there was
Hmm.
something in her face that looked like she's had to make this call before. And maybe in the past when she did it, she was idealistic enough to believe that, well, they'll come in, they'll help her. She'll realize that this was a mistake and she won't do it again. And maybe she'll start getting better and start like, functioning like a human being. And she didn't,
Yeah.
nothing changed. And so it's almost like I am not calling the hospital for you again. Nothing's going to change. You made your bed, literally. Lie in it.
Hmm.
I thought, and I think that's what was in her face. That's what I got. And that's why the second question for me is like, what would you do if you were in that situation? I honestly, because it's a child, I don't know. Because when we're children, we also tend to take on things that aren't our fault. Like you were a kid. You weren't supposed to know what to do in a situation like that. You were never supposed to be in a situation like that. That's
Hmm.
why there's trauma. So yeah, yeah, so I don't think the Dream Demon had anything. Dream Demon, here I'm back in Nightmare on Elm Street. No, I don't think
Yeah.
the Smile Demon had anything to do with her mother's death. Does anybody
Yeah.
else think that?
Well, I
I'm
don't let
wondering.
us know in
Yeah.
the chat. But another question, well, just because JR mentioned it, but do you prefer like one movie over the other, just in terms of this and the sequel, or even like the
Um,
the character without like going into spoilers?
I think I was more on the ride with this one. I think I even rated this one a little higher than the second one. I still liked the second
Yeah.
one. I was very, although the best thing the second one did without going into specifics was set up, oh wow, you can, Parker Finn, you can literally kind of do anything now. And I really hope you're inventive about the next steps you take, the next movie that's coming. I don't
Hmm.
want just another version of, because I mean, they're two completely different movies in the sense and the course that they take and the impact they have.
Yeah.
But so I just want to see, okay, so now what? Really impress me. You've set the stage for yourself to really create some curveballs and some surprises. And I'm really kind of, I don't walk into movies with expectations anymore. But when Smile 3 comes out, which it's in pre-production now, so it's going to happen.
Hmm.
When it comes out, I'm going to have my fingers crossed. I'm really going to be hoping that he just aims for the fences, to use a sports
Yeah.
term that I never use.
Okay.
How about you? Do
Fair
you
enough.
prefer one over the other?
Yeah, well, I watched the second one. I didn't see them in theater, but when I was in New York with Eric, we caught it several months later. I think we just watched it on Paramount Plus, and I wasn't into it. It just it felt like the things like the gripes that I have with this one, it felt like they were kind of like amplified, and it was just like that was the whole movie. I felt it was really long too.
Okay.
Just a lot of things that, probably like I would have preferred trimmed down and just like been a lot quicker. But yeah, I think that in terms of like the character and the story, like I much preferred this. Like I felt that there was like a momentum going, and it felt like there was like a journey as well. And the
Mm,
second one, it just felt like she was just sort of like swirling around the same thing. It was just like the movie kept hitting the same beats over and over again. So
hmm.
I wasn't particularly enthralled in that movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing with this one. because I think with Smile 2, it was just kind of like, okay, just show me what you did. With this
Yeah.
one, I think I walked in with even lower expectations because I remember the early promotional material, wasn't it just like some fleshy thing that wasn't even a face that just like looked like it had, I don't remember if it was a scar or
Hmm.
just looked like a wrinkle, like
You mean
weird.
like the monster at the end?
I mean, just the promotional material. Like, I just remember seeing posters that had like a
Uh-huh.
weird, and I might be just inventing this, but I thought I saw like
Yeah.
posters with like a weird fleshy face that had like an absence of eyes and an absence of a mouth, but kind of like the implication where they would be that just looked weird and
Yeah.
non-human. Do you remember that?
I don't know. The only thing I
Okay.
remember is like the key art that we see where just like sort of like the body bag is zipped open and you can see the smile
Right, that too. And
in
I
there.
was like, it didn't look like it was terribly inventive, like it was going to be like a great movie or
Yeah.
reinvent the wheel or anything. So when I did watch it, I was like, oh, I think this is better than it has any business being, which will obviously
Yeah.
swing it up for me.
Amethyst agrees with your take that Rose's mom wasn't a victim of the uh, entity, is I
Cool.
guess what we're calling it.
Thanks, Amethyst.
The yeah, I don't remember any of that. Like the promotional material that I remember the most, and I think this is for both one and two, was
Yeah.
just that they would have actors go to events, whether it was like sporting events, it usually was, and they would just like stand there with like a sign that said like smile, and they would just be doing the gross evil smile.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was just like they would people would see them, they'd be like televised there doing it. It was just like very unsettling,
Yeah.
but it like, like the first movie, and this is what's interesting, is that Paramount was just going to release it on streaming. I guess they didn't have the faith in it initially
Wow.
to put it in theaters. And then I don't know what happened, but it ended up obviously going into theaters, and it made over $200 million.
Yeah.
And I think the budget was 25, maybe less. I'm not sure at this point. Um, the sequel, the budget was a little bit more. It made less, but it made over 100 million. So but that's crazy to think that like, like these small decisions. I wonder if like whoever was at Paramount that was just like wanted to put it on streaming got fired.
Or was even
Um,
still working there. They cycle through
yeah,
studio heads these days, you know?
yeah. But the movie itself, so it started as a short film called Laura Can't Sleep, or Laura Hasn't Slept,
Mm.
I believe is what it's called. And I'm pretty sure you can find it on YouTube. I know it's available on the physical media releases.
Hmm.
And it's the same actress who plays Laura, and she's in like her therapist's office, and she's just sort of like talking about how she hasn't slept. Like it's very different in tone, and there's not really much linking it to like the smile of it all, other than the fact that she says like she sees like a man in her dreams, and it like and or it's like always a different person. That might have
Hmm.
been the thing, but just like it's smiling. And as like the short film goes on, like you just sort of like the office walls strip away and you see that it's not, it is a dream. So I think it's more linked to like a Nightmare on Elm Street aspect of it rather than what it became.
Hmm.
And we see the monster or the demon or whatever, and it's not really the smile. Like they're not really doing it's its own thing. So it kind of whatever that was still kind of like transitional into like what it became for the feature. Like it wasn't 100% like the idea that we thought. And like comparative to like the opening scene of the movie
Yeah.
Smile, she's clearly like a lot more disturbed. Like this is like she's at the end of her rope with everything, and she's just like seeing shit. Whereas like in the short film, it's more of just like she's in the therapist's office and she's, you know, disturbed by what's happening, but it's not at like that point of mania yet. So I think those are the differences
Interesting.
primarily. Yeah.
I wonder if the leaning into the smile thing was a Parker Finn call or if it was a studio Like someone in some office going like, you know what's really creepy is that smile, but you gotta like double down on it. Kind of. I mean, I don't know why I'm envisioning someone in a three-piece suit with a cigar, but that's what I see.
Brianna saying that the budget for this movie was 17 million, and it is, and it made 217 million, so 200 million
Wow,
profit.
good,
Yeah,
good for
and it
them.
could have just been a streamer. See, this is why streaming is not good. Um,
I mean,
the
in times of pandemic, it can be a lifesaver.
yeah.
But when you can get back into a release kind of thing and take the world by storm, I say go
Yeah.
for it.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, this came out like the pandemic had already like, kind of waned out.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there was still panic, I guess. The sequel, Smile 2, was 28 million and it made
Mm,
138 million.
cool. No,
Yeah.
this see, there's also something in terms of like I remember one of the things that I really kind of delighted with this movie was the fact that like the second the cute little cat scurried into the frame of her house,
Mustache.
it's not even mustache, it's mustache, the way it's
Mhm.
spelled. But I love the fact that I'm watching her enter in the, relatively early in the movie, and the
Mhm.
cat crawls in, and I'm just kind of like, oh no, that cat's gonna die. And then
Mhm.
and then the cat reappeared again, and I was just kind of like, oh kitty, you're not long for this world. But I
Yeah.
was saying almost with like, a smile on my own face. And then and I started getting involved in the cat because I noticed like the first time she's like feeding it like out of the can. She's putting the entire can into the cat's bowl. And I was like, you
Mhm.
never feed a cat an entire. Okay, is this like a metaphor for like you can't stuff your face and overeat? Because she certainly has an inclination that way. Because later on we see her just diving in and killing that burger in her driver's seat. But anyway,
Yeah.
but then the cat goes missing and. I remember the initial reveal. I love that I
Mhm.
had kind of not forgotten about the cat. It was always in the back of my mind. I was like, okay, there's going to be some reveal. It's going to be terrible. I'm going to be
Mhm.
really sad. And it wasn't until I got through the whole birthday sequence, right up to the point where it's like I don't think anybody says it, but basically the time to open your Aunt Rose's present. And I was like, oh, it's the
Yeah.
cat. So
Yeah.
when,
And that's
yeah,
the thing. It's just like it felt telegraphed. Like it was
yeah,
like, we know that that's what it's going to be, or at least I knew. I'm sure that there were
yeah,
people who were surprised by it. But it was the effectiveness of it too, because it worked. And it did like
yes.
because the seeds were planted. You knew that like nothing good was going to be in that present, and it's just like
Hmm.
shit, it's the cat.
Yes.
There's
And it
we've
was
established enough that like the cat, like it's not going to be this train that they put so much effort into showing us like the train getting put in the box and then
yeah.
everything getting wrapped. So yeah, like it worked and it that might be my favorite part of the movie because it's just
Oh,
like everything about it, just like and her like just that's the moment where it's like I sense she might be thinking like she went crazy because it's just like
yeah.
I didn't do that, but did I sort of thing, and just like
No.
everyone looking around at her, and then of course like the the coup
Oh,
d'etat of like falling into
the Fight
J-
Club
the
into
the
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 glass
Joe
table,
Roberts into the
Jill
glass.
Roberts into the glass table, and then okay, see that's the thing. Like, yeah, already I'm on the train, and I'm not sitting there going like it's the cat. I'm sitting there going, oh, I know it's going to be the cat, and then he opens it up. She is the thing. She's pleading to all of these faces that are looking at her. One of them is smiling. She's shrieking at it. So I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God, octane, 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 and then she falls into the table. Thing that I
Mhm.
love is the aftermath because we see her recoiling from just witnessing these shards of glass cutting
Yeah.
into her hands. And I'm just like, oh, okay, I am totally in this movie. I am so invested in what is
Yeah.
happening right now. So I mean, yeah, I started off into it and I ended even more so. And I think this movie does that a lot for me. Another example of that is like I think it takes characters that typically not any other horror movie, but many other horror movies would tend to just kind of like leave these one note characters or give like a sliver of humanity, but we get
Mm.
more from in particular I'm thinking about Holly because the way she's introduced, she's so self-absorbed, she's so materialistic.
This
She
is the
and
sister.
This is the sister. She
Okay.
and her husband Greg are sitting there just talking about like, huh, why bother helping people when you could make money? Fa 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 fa. Nouveau riche pieces of shit. And I'm like, okay. And I had forgotten how bad they were when they got
Yeah.
introduced. So I started wondering, okay, are these contenders for the cherry picker? But then what I love about when she confronts Holly, because also even just the phone call with Holly.
Yeah.
She before she goes to the party, she's just kind of like, "So I don't know if you're coming over, but you might want to buy my kid a present, even if you don't show up, because that's the kind of parent I am. I like to pressure people into buying presents, when, and feeling obligated. And you sound weird. What's wrong with you?" Like, it's basically like her tone of voice over the phone while her sister is unraveling.
Yeah.
And but then she shows up to the party. She has the reaction that she has. But when she comes back to not just make amends, but just kind of like tell her sister this is what's happening to me. Um, I love that her sister comes to the porch and doesn't speak in an accusatory way, like right off the bat. Like she actually seems to be halfway
Yeah.
at being a decent person, just kind of like listening and of course her son is freaked and she has a right to express that. But there's something about the weird commonality between the two of them. They both seem to be like wanting to talk on equal ground with each other and not
Yeah.
chastise each other. But then it takes is like a flip of like one sentence, and then they just start attacking each other and doing it. I just love how much it felt like a sister fight. These are not just two people bickering. These are two people who
Hmm.
know each other and who have long, deep-seated resentments toward each other because the older one, just like with the resentment toward the mother, the older sister who could have stayed there and protected her or could have taken her younger sister out of that whole debacle and saved them, absconded with them both, and left their mother to deal with her problems, didn't. She left her behind in the mess, and the younger sister Rose has never forgiven her big sister for that.
Yeah.
And also, she has an entire opinion about that's the same thing I opined about Holly trying to qualify as a like a regular human being by having the right house, the right husband, the right dinners, the right birthday parties for her son and everything like that, and by pressuring people into buying presents for her son. But I love the fact that they're both like hitting these marks with each other. They're both like just triggering, 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 and I buy it. It doesn't just feel like melodrama for melodrama's sake. I'm like, I don't know. That's another reason why I guess like the confrontation of what happened to them because it felt so real while they were confronting each other about their collective childhood. When Rose does have something she needs to face, so it didn't feel quite unearned for me in the climax. I was like, well, the seeds have been planted, and I know she's carrying something. And also,
Hmm.
I could see her. This is another thing that I loved. There was no chemistry between the actor who played Trevor, her significant other who lives with her,
Yeah.
Rose. Like I watched them on screen, I was just kind of like, "What the fuck is going on?" And then Kyle Gallner comes in as Joel, and I'm watching the two of them talk as people who haven't seen each other in ages, and I'm just kind of like, "There it is." And
I
I feel
mean,
like
all intentional for sure.
yeah, yeah, of
Yeah.
course. But I think
Yeah.
you have to have an eye for chemistry to understand that these are the dynamics that we need for this to work. And I think,
Hmm.
and I don't know if Parker Finn's the kind of director who's very hands-on with his actors, or if he just hires the right people and just kind of gets out of the way, or some gray area between the two of them. But whatever it
Yeah.
is, it worked on this movie for me.
Like the casting is really good here. The
Yeah.
sister, um, because she when I first saw her, I'm just like, where do I know her from? Did you ever watch the 90210 reboot?
No, I did not.
She played Ivy. Um, I just trying to like the character was just sort of like I think she's more of like an alternative like skater girl, or she might have like been like a bit of a hippie, but like that was like that's where I know her from.
Mm.
Um the I think it's Jesse T. Usher plays Trevor
That sounds right.
Tyler. Yeah, yeah. He's on The Boys,
Oh,
if you've ever seen
okay.
that.
No,
He
I
he
haven't seen that yet.
plays A Train, I I believe. So we all
Okay.
know Kyle Gallner. You know, we
Yes, we
we we
do.
know Kyle Gallner
Oof.
from everything. Sosie, I think that's how you say it. Sosie Bacon is Kevin
Yes.
Bacon and Kira Sedgwick's daughter.
And you can see
So
it. She has Kira's eyes, and I think she's got both of their thinness. She's
thinness.
they're a very
Yeah.
thin family.
She has a very mature look to her
Oh.
as well.
Hmm.
And she was actually in the Scream television series.
Oh, was she? Okay, I never watched
Yeah.
that either. One of
Yeah.
these days, maybe I'll dabble, but I haven't
Hmm.
even dipped in a little for that.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
good.
So
She's another, I really loved her work. I was watching her and I was just kind of going, how many things has she done before? Because I haven't seen her in anything that I can remember.
hmm
And here she is, not carrying this movie, but certainly just filling in everything that needs to happen and feeling so incredibly just dropped in as an actress. Like
Yeah.
wherever she's working from, it's working for her. It's working for the movie. It's working for me. I can't wait to see her in something else.
hmm
Yeah.
No,
You,
no, I agree.
no.
Sorry, I was looking at the cast list and just
For people who were, but for people who were watching, can see
yeah.
you were looking at something. For people who were listening, probably thought, "Oh, Zach doesn't like her."
Hmm. No, no, no. Thank you for filling in the context. No, I do like her a lot.
Yeah,
Like that's the thing. It's just like there's a lot of like I guess the term nepo babies now of just like
sure.
the actors who, you know, your parents were something so you get a turn to. Actually, there's a funny meme going around that's just like, do you remember back in the early 2000s when if you were a pop star and your sister was a pop star, you got to try it too?
Yes.
Um, but yeah, it seems like there's a lot of Nepo babies these days, but she definitely holds her own. And that's the thing. It's just like if it wasn't for like her name being Bacon, I would have never thought, oh, she's Kevin Bacon's daughter,
Hmm.
and looked into it. So, and I was actually I didn't look at any of like the trivia about the movie, but I was looking up trivia about her, and I guess that like when they raised her, like they made sure to just like they wanted their kids to have a normal life, not sort
Hmm.
of like perverted by the success of fame or anything. So she sort of just chose on her own
Yeah.
to go after this and I guess like went through all the training and all that. And
Yeah.
so there really isn't any like pull or, you know, it's not like
There's
Kevin
no
did any favors
influence.
for her.
No,
Yeah,
no, no, no,
yeah.
no. Yeah.
She earned it herself and you can really
I
tell.
yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Also, you're making me, it's funny because now you're making me think about another moment in the movie, just in terms of, because you talk about rewriting and stuff. I couldn't tell, when I was watching it, it just kind of struck me as like, oh, you could have done that as just like a character, almost like I'm Rhodes' friend coaching her on like, no, the way to coerce
Mhm.
people is. But now I'm wondering if there could have been like another, again, another interesting direction from a writing standpoint, like almost a correction when she visits Mrs. Munoz to talk about you know, in Gabriel's loft and sees like all of the drawings, the scribblings, the etchings and the
Yeah.
paintings that he, and she's just inquiring because she just wants to understand the source of like this thing that's after her. And I when she finally discloses the fact that it's happening to her and Mrs. Munoz just loses it on her, she just kind that's one point where I guess from a writing standpoint, if we're critiquing, like Rose hits back with some very kind of like pat answers, just kind of like, no, you don't understand, it's happening to me, and I need help, or something like that. Well, why would this woman want to help her? Help you, and I understand she's unraveling, so she's probably not in the best mental state. But I couldn't help but wonder if Rose unpacked the pertinent details of her predicament, like you don't understand. The girl who passed this to me is the same girl who witnessed your husband, you know, and his suicide. He witnessed someone's suicide before that. Like, I'm wondering if even there could have been like an inkling of in Mrs. Munoz, just like, does this mean that like my husband, you know, I mean, I don't know if she should like necessarily like link arms with Rose and go out because she can't save her husband or anything like that. And I
Yeah.
don't know how invested she would be in trying to prevent it. But I can't help but wonder, like, if you just started writing those lines and then you looked for like what kind of a response would a person have to that, because that is a weird thing. That's the thing that
hmm
makes Joel finally, once he realizes there's a connection, like a a
Yeah.
public display of suicide kind of thing, connection among all these deaths, and that's why Rose was asking. That gets him interested. Now he's invested because he loves Rose, but I don't know.
Mhm.
I just thought about it.
Well, the first thing I thought about when you were talking about Mrs. What's her name?
Munoz, Munoz,
Munoz was
yes.
get out of my house. Um, but yeah, like this is and Brianna saying that's another trope that is so tired, not believing the main character that something's
Right,
happening.
right.
And I mean, I in this situation, like I understand that like her husband just died brutally, like he killed himself
Yeah,
and you
that's
know,
true.
I we do see this in movies too, where it's just like you're not saying the right thing,
Hmm.
because you could probably articulate this in a way that is much more conducive to getting your point across. I think with
Hmm.
that character, though, there was never going to be any way to, allow her to believe this or put any information out there because it's like, look at the situation. Like she's like her husband. This just happened to her husband, and some strangers coming into the house
Yeah,
and all like it's just weird that like she's even letting a reporter in or any of that. But
I
this
guess.
is
Yeah.
you made me consider something because when they went up there and this stood out to me, this place is covered wall or like floor to ceiling over
Hmm.
all the walls of just like this artwork. And
Hmm.
it's like beyond that, it's just like artwork of just like his brother who killed
Yeah.
himself when he was younger. And like paintings that have just like looked like they took a long time to do
Hmm.
rather than like 4 to 7 days. So again, this goes back to my theorem. It's a word that I don't throw out very often. The theorem
Okay.
that it like the demon does attach to people who are already kind of susceptible to
Hmm.
trauma, and that these like this is stuff that he's been dealing with for a while, and it's just sort of like it's exacerbated it, but like a lot of the
Right.
stuff that's in there is just shit that he's been dealing with. So when
Hmm.
Rose comes to talk to Mrs. Munoz and just like this is happening, this man's wife is just like this is something that he's been dealing with for his entire life. And it just like it got
Hmm.
really bad recently, and you coming in here and you're exploiting it, or you're, whatever the case may be. So I mean that, as tropey as that is, it's like Brianna said, like I at least bought it in that situation because I feel like the wife was acting exactly how I would expect her to react.
Right.
So all that was still working for me. And that was still kind of like there was a purpose for her to be there because it's like, I want to find out, because this is before she went to Joel,
Yeah.
if memory serves, she wanted to find out who was the link before him. So it was just sort of like trying to find that information. So it still felt very contextual with the story and what Rose's mission was at that point. So I was good
Right.
with all that. And I loved
Okay.
her, like, get out of my fucking house.
There was another moment that made me think of another moment there because you brought up the ring earlier, and it just
Yeah.
there was the moment literally where she said almost to the sentence, like to the cue. She's just kind of like, and then I saw his face, and then there's a quick jump cut to like reveal his, disfigured face and everything like that, and
Mhm.
then she follows it up with the humanity saying, we've been together however many years, and now face is the last thing that that I have to remember him by. But it made me think about the ring when they're at right in the beginning after the initial kill when
Yeah.
Naomi Watts is talking to the mother of one of the victims, and she's kind of like, but then I just saw her face, and then closet door opens, jump scare,
Yeah.
and it's one of the most iconic moments. So much so that they touched on it in Scary
Mhm.
Movie 3. But when I think about
Yeah.
that kind of a reveal, I think about the ring. So yeah.
Mm. It was like Amber Tamblyn
Uh,
who played that
or the
character.
or the other one. Amber Tamblyn played one of them. Yeah, I
No, she
always
was the
forget.
one in the closet that was
She's the one in the
discovered.
closet.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't.
Yeah. The other one went mad from what she saw, but she wasn't like cursed by
Oh,
the
that's right.
ring. And
Weren't they
then in
talking about that at the funeral,
yeah. And
like
then
outside or something? Yeah.
yeah, and in Scary Movie 3 it was Jenny McCarthy and Pamela Anderson.
Yeah, which was still sensational to
Yeah.
watch.
I
But
actually so I re-remembering. So she had already gone to Joel because remember the picture loaded of the one woman from before, and I guess she had the
yes.
printout of it, and she tried to show the guy's wife that, and that was like what really set her off.
Hmm.
But at that point, I guess Joel was doing his own digging because he like called her and it's just like I've got more. So I mean, maybe the scene wasn't all that necessary, but it still worked as far
Yeah,
as I'm concerned.
it didn't not work for me. It's just
Hmm.
you've got me thinking in terms of like from a writing standpoint. I did
Yeah.
just from a pure visual standpoint. There was one laughable thing for me that followed when she's knocking on Joel's door, getting him to show her the security cam footage of that woman prior to Gabriel who watched the guy at the gas station kill himself.
Yeah.
And I just love that the footage is in crystal clear Technicolor. Like I don't need it to be in black and white and completely like pixelated, but
Hmm.
it looked like a movie camera to me with just maybe like a bit of a, I don't know if it's a time lapse, but like a bit of a delay, like it looked a little
Yeah.
choppy. There
Well,
was something, but
they gotta be able to see clear enough to like, is he smiling? I just liked their, I liked because this is where their chemistry came in because they're having the whole thing. She's like, I think there's a video thing, and he's just like, it's loading. It's like he's already a step
yeah,
ahead of her. He's just like, we got
yeah.
her.
Oh my God, I love him
I
so
mean,
much.
yeah, Kyle Gallner, Gallner. How would
I
you
say
pronounce it?
I've always said Gallner, but
Yeah,
because
same.
Gall says
Yeah,
Gall to me, but
same
okay.
birthday as me. By the way,
Really?
off by 1 year.
Okay.
Um, but
Wow.
yeah, he's because he's working all the time. So he's been in so many like
Yes.
I guess he's considered like a modern day Scream King,
Uh-huh.
as they put it. But I mean like Jennifer's Body, Nightmare on
Mm-hmm.
Elm Street remake. Yeah.
He's good in it.
He is. No, I mean, like he's probably the best part of it.
Yeah.
Red Eye,
Mm-hmm.
Wes Craven.
Five Cream.
Oh my God, I keep forgetting he was in Five. That was like speaking of rewriting movies, because there was like a whole thing like his character should have been like in the entire thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Take advantage of that red herring, but whatever.
absolutely.
Yeah. And Strange
But
Darling most
Strange
recently.
Darling, which came out recently. Interesting movie. He's definitely
Ooh.
yeah, like I mean the cast was good in that. But yeah,
Uh,
I have some mixed opinions about it, but
wow.
it's always like good to see him turn up in
Yeah.
things. And I want him to be in more. And I mean, I love that he was in Smile too, and that's all I'll say about that. But yeah,
uh,
he needs to do more.
Well, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm still doing back episodes of the Danielle Harris, Scout Taylor Compton pod, and they had him on for one of the episodes I finally caught up to right before the release of Strange Darling, and they were talking forever because he and Scout, apparently you were mentioning Scout Taylor Compton
Yeah.
earlier. The two of them have known each other like forever, and they've still yet to work with each other, so they're trying to remedy that. So maybe he'll be in one of her projects now that she's
Oh, cool.
putting out her own films together with Danielle, but which I would love to see. But
Hmm.
the thing I kept thinking about while I was watching this movie, I mean, I was in the movie, but in the back of my head, I just kind of see him on screen for a little bit while there's a lull, because he's also one of those characters. He gets to play in tension, but he also gets to play in just kind of sitting there and listening and looking.
Yeah.
And I look at him, but he was talking about how he hasn't been cast in things before because he's been told to his face he's not handsome enough. And I'm like watching this movie going, who the fuck? What is wrong with people? There's not just one type of handsome. There's also like aesthetically, I have always thought he's beautiful, but also just there's something that burns through the screen like that. Just speaks to me of like a decency and
Yeah.
someone I want to know and someone I want to learn more about and somebody I want to occupy time with while they're on screen. Like so people are dumb.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he played the role. He played the role he should have
Yeah.
been
Well, it's
playing in
like,
this movie.
Meryl Streep, like earlier in her career, there was like a whole thing where
Oh,
it's like some producer, which I think was like Dino De Laurentiis, or that was like the
it,
rumor.
well, it was
Um,
King Kong. It was for
yeah.
the Jessica. It ended up being Jessica Lange, but they brought in this fresh new actress,
Yeah.
Meryl Streep, and he said, "Why would you bring me?" I think he said it in front of her. Why would you bring me someone who is not beautiful?
But like in Italian or whatever, but she like
Yeah,
understood, and then
yeah.
she rebutted in Italian
Hmm.
or whatever, and then she left. But I mean, like that was just like a thing that like stuck with her, and then
Yeah,
obviously career.
yeah.
So
Right.
who's laughing now? But yeah, that's a thing, and I think like at this point, he's getting the roles. And
Yeah.
also Stephanie mentioned Veronica Mars, the
Oh,
television
right.
show.
Yeah.
Was he
They
was he
talked about
was
that too. Yeah.
Beaver. That was the character's name, right? I
He's
need to
so
watch that
wonderful.
again. Yeah, just because it was on for 3 seasons,
He was
I
on
think.
Smallville too. He had a recurring role. He played the
Oh,
Flash. He
yeah,
was, yeah,
the
he's so
Flash
cute.
before
No, he got it. He was the
what's
Flash.
the no, but before what's his
Oh,
face?
before, yeah, because
Um,
they're different worlds. They're different
yeah,
universes. Yeah, the
what's
Smallville and the Flash. Oh, that's Grant Gustin is his
Grant
name. Correct.
Gustin? Yeah,
Yeah,
and then of course there's the what's his face in the movies. So there's
Ezra
been a lot of
Miller.
Flash. Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot of Flashes, a lot of Batmans, a lot of like
a
there's
lot
just
more Batmans. Yeah,
yeah.
we're still, and we got a new Superman coming up this summer. I don't know. I have less
Yeah.
expectations walking into that movie than I do walking into Smile 3.
Mhm.
I'll just let it happen. I just want to walk in and just let it happen. But
Yeah. I'll probably
um
miss it because it's not really in my wheelhouse, but
yeah, there was
yeah.
something that actually made me feel a little bit nostalgic about the they didn't linger on it, and I actually could have
Mm.
used a little bit more at the end of this movie. And basically, it's when the creature, the Smile Demon,
Mhm.
is crawling, basically kind of crawling into the mouth of Rose to, I guess, consume her or absorb her or
Yeah.
whatever. And while I was watching it, I just kind of got like, it reminded me of Society from the 80s or a Cronenberg movie, like The Fly
Mm.
or something like that. Just
Okay.
kind of made me think like, ooh, I could have lingered on this and just watched him crawl, like just watch her unhinge her jaw and
Yeah.
just watch him kind of like really just crawl down her throat. That would have been
Yeah.
amazing.
Because there was like it was a mix of practical and CGI.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
like the whole monster was like this like puppet thing, is from what I understand, right?
Something with the face though, because the face reads
Yeah.
like an actual person, so I don't know if it was just superimposed later or if there was some green
Yeah.
screen. I have no idea about the
Yeah.
execution of the special effects, but they were effective, I thought, even though she kind of
Yeah.
looked like Valak in panties.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. Like I would have liked to see more of that. Like, may as well. Like you're going for it. Let's, you know,
In her,
get gross.
yeah, seeing mom in her little Ellen Ripley briefs, but
God.
I couldn't help thinking, I'm like, oh, they're tiny. I don't know if they're as tiny as Sigourney
Hmm.
Weaver's in at the end of Alien, but they made me think
Yeah.
about them because they're very late
Sigourney.
20th century. Sigourney,
Sigourney.
Sigourney.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything pressing that we still need to get to before we can start picking?
I think I said it all. Oh, the only other thing, it's a purely technical thing. I thought the score work. You talked about the sound design for the movie, and what
Yeah.
really kind of like came across for me. I didn't realize how effective the score was until I noticed it, which was when Joel was driving with Rose, and they were
Hmm.
breaking down like the pattern and the lone survivor and all that, and they were on their way to him, and there was this synth underscoring going on, and I was just kind of like, has this been going on the whole time? And I started remembering, oh yeah, there's a lot of like wah and everything. If you listen to the end
Yeah.
credits, it's worth sitting through the end credits of this movie just to experience. The composer's name is Cristobal Tapia de Veir, or Vir. And he also he hasn't done a lot of things that I've seen. The only things I'm familiar with is they brought him back for Smile 2. He did 8 episodes. I don't know if that's the whole series of Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency with Elijah Wood and Samuel Barnett, I think is his name, a cutie. But the most notable thing that I still have yet to dive into, I have to this summer, is White Lotus. He's the composer for the new White
Oh,
Lotus series.
wow. So yeah, he had a falling out with Mike White, I guess. So I don't know the
Ooh.
details. Like it was there because he did like he's done the 3 seasons so far.
Yeah.
The theme song, because like the first 2 seasons, there's like subtle differences from season 1 to 2, but it still has the woo woos like
Right.
woo woo woo. And the third season they just sort of like they got rid of that. But then he uploaded the version, or like his version was uploaded to YouTube, that is like the version that we hear, but then like the woo woos eventually come in, and people were like really up in arms at the like when season three started because they're just like, what happened to the woo-woos? But like the score like really started to grow on me, like the new one, and I just like I don't actually miss the woo-woos all that much. I mean, it would have been nice to have, but
Don't tell
yeah,
Peaceful
so
Ball.
so I guess that what happened is like,
Oh.
he wanted that version of Mike White was just like, no, we're gonna do it that way. And I guess like, tempers flared and it just didn't work
Personalities
out. And now he's
clashed. Yeah.
yeah, and now he's off of the show. But yeah, check it out if you haven't watched the show yet.
Yeah,
And the
I have
music
Max now, so I need to check it out. Yeah.
the music is great. Here, I mean, honestly, like I don't really have any notes on the score. It never really stood out to me. Like I know what you're talking about, like that low synth, but
Yeah.
nothing really, like if something like catches my ear, I'll
Yeah.
like think to like mention it or I'll like look into the composer and it's
Hmm.
just like this felt to me, I mean like I hate to say it, but just like, very typical. Very basic
Mm.
of just like a lot of the scores that you hear nowadays.
Mm.
Um I could go back and listen, or I'm sure it's available just to listen to the score on its own, and maybe I'd have a
Yeah.
different perspective now that you mentioned it. But it like watching it with the movie, it never really jumped out at me.
Even just the end
It
credits.
was
If you just play the end
yeah.
credits, it's
I
it's
did. I sat through
weird.
because I was just like laying
Oh,
on the couch and I just didn't have the
okay.
energy to turn off the TV.
So
But
it didn't
I
speak
think
to you. Okay.
well, I think that I mean that might even be the power of the sound engineering itself because it's like
Mm.
I was more keyed into that than the actual
Yeah.
music itself, so that could have been a factor in it all.
It reminded me, I think we addressed it when we talked about Fatal Attraction. It's where I always go when I think about atmospheric scoring that sounds
Yeah.
more like it's sound design than it is. So it just actually kind of like boosts things, but you don't even realize like what it's doing, which there's like one particular scene where Michael Douglas has the rabbit and he's in an old rickety elevator going to in a parking garage going to his car, and you just hear what you think is like the echo of the elevator as you watch the movie, but if you pay attention, there's score there that is just kind of informing, just like, like drawing out the chord and tightening it so you can actually feel some
Yeah.
tension. And I realized when I didn't notice the synth until they were talking because all of a sudden there was something else to pay attention to. And I realized up
Mm,
until that point for me, it had just kind of like woven seamlessly
yeah.
throughout the scenes for me because again I was in it, so obviously something was working,
Yeah.
so I that's why it worked for me.
You mentioned Fatal Attraction, and I just like this is just a reoccurring theme. I still need to watch the Joshua Jackson
Yes.
series. I think I've mentioned it like every episode for like the last 2 months.
That should be
I was
one of
just
the
like meaning to.
options
Yeah.
for
No, we
next
don't
month's.
do TV. That's too much.
How many
Too.
episodes was it? I
It
don't
was like
even
eight
know.
episodes, so that's
Okay.
like like four
I mean, we
movies in
did
one.
Buffy, but that's Buffy.
But that
That's
was cherry picker after dark
Yeah, that's true. That's
territory.
true.
But anyway, all right. Well, let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we kill people on purpose.
First order of business, we need a cherry on top.
I mean, we're both going Gaga over Kyle Gallner, but I do have to say, like, if Rose weren't as well played as she was, this could be kind of a slog to get through. Or it could be not even a slog. It could
Yeah,
just be like really depressing. There's something about her that I find arresting and compelling and makes me want to be on her
yeah.
side. I think she's the crucial component
I
here.
would pick her as well. I mean, like as much as I would want to choose Kyle Gallner, I think
Yeah.
that yeah, you're right because I mean, like we are following her for the bulk of the movie, and
Yeah.
there's we've seen many a horror picture with similar premises where the character was not as strong or the performance wasn't as strong, and it's
For
kind of
all of them.
yeah, yeah.
Just saw it. The
there's
wounds are still
there's
fresh
there's
again.
something about her that just like she was the secret ingredient. What did he say?
I don't
And we're talking
remember. I
about
just
Halloween Resurrection for
Yeah, and
anyone
I
who's
just
yeah.
watched it and I don't remember. That's how, oh God, that
He
movie.
yeah, no, Buster Rhymes was just because she's like, I want to quit. This isn't for me. And this is like the most like tapioca pudding character you could think of. And he's I mean, and granted, like the all the other like the five kids are just like wackadoodle. But not like in an interesting way, but they're still
No.
they have like they're like oozing way more personality than she is. And she's like, I'm gonna quit. This is just not for me. And he's like, you can't quit. Like you're the best one of them all. You're
Yeah, you're
like,
the crucial component.
yeah,
You got the star quality. She's like,
yeah.
but I don't want to be famous. What do you mean you don't want to be famous? Everybody want to be famous. I remember that.
That's the American
Oh
dream.
God. And
Yeah,
I did watch the alternate ending. That's what's the most prevalent in my head right
yeah,
now. I was watching while I was setting up for tonight. Just
yeah,
him when Michael is on the gurney and I need to see his face. So they show him to her and then he comes back and he starts to kill Busta and she
yeah.
saves Busta's life and he looks at her. He's just I don't even remember what he says. I just remember
You
it's something like,
ball
"Oh,
bustin' something
yeah,
like
you
just like all
ball
these
busted badass
yeah,
son of a bitch." And then he just says like, "God."
chick.
Then he says, "Yeah,
Yeah.
chick." And then he goes, "God bless you." And I'm like, "Oh God, this is so
Why did she need to see
saccharine."
his why did she need to see his face? Like, do they even know what he
Because
looks
no,
like?
because it's a parallel with Jamie needing to see his face
I
before she's
understand
killed.
that, but
Yeah,
like
but from a logical
But
standpoint, no, it doesn't
Sarah
make any
wasn't
sense.
aware of that. Yeah, yeah,
It doesn't make any sense. It was a
yeah.
poorly executed cut
Yeah.
parallel.
I'm still partial to the Deckard saves the day. Ryan Merriman of
Yeah,
Final Destination 3, which we talked
yeah.
about last week.
Who are
And
you? I'm
and the
Deckard.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
what's funny is that's and I'm sure we mentioned this in the
we
Halloween
did.
Resurrection episode, but when Busta Rhymes kicks down the door for one frame, you can see that it is actually Ryan Merriman on the other side of the door, and then it's a different shot, and then it's bust out. Uh,
And we get trick or treat, motherfucker.
yeah,
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 Jesus.
cinematic history. Okay,
I'm
so
done.
it's Rose. Did she have a last name?
Yeah, Rose Cotter, I think. Let me
Cotter,
double
yeah,
check.
Doctor. She keeps saying Dr. Cotter, Dr. Cotter.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
thinking of like Rose from what's it called? Get Out.
Golden Girls.
Well, that too. Yeah.
Which Rose? Which one?
Rose from Get Out.
Oh,
Rose, the
yeah.
keys. Where are the keys?
I got him right. Got him right here.
Yeah.
Can't
You
let
know,
you
I can't
go.
get.
I can't give you these, right? Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I gotta
Yeah.
rewatch that movie. I haven't seen it in a
Oh,
minute.
it's so good.
It's a
Okay.
fun time.
So, uh, Amethyst actually says Soci is great, but I'd probably pick Jewel for the cherry on top. So we got a little pushback there.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. He does his Kyle Gallner thing. If you, I don't want him recast. I'm
Yeah.
glad that I want him to work as often as you do, Zach.
Hmm.
But if somebody else plays the role, the movie could still happen. It wouldn't be the movie it is, but it could still happen.
Yeah.
Somebody else plays Rose. Unless you're casting like Vera Farmiga or somebody like that. But I mean, she has to be, like, I don't know. She just fits.
Yeah.
She's perfect. The way
Yeah.
Vera Farmiga is perfect in everything she does. So anyway,
Hmm.
even the fucking, I'm not gonna go there. Those movies,
You're
if
right.
you know, you know.
The yeah. Okay, so last week we asked you who deserves to die the most in
Yeah.
Final Destination 3. I nominated Frankie Cheeks. You nominated Ian McKinley.
Hmm.
Across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the final vote was 512 for Frankie versus 214 for Ian.
Okay.
Yeah. In
Woo.
Interesting, huh? So let's hear what the good people have to say. Spidey fan, Frankie is a creep. At least I can entertain the idea that Ian is traumatized. He did see the hottest woman in the franchise die before his eyes. I'm editing to acknowledge that my comment has creepy undertones that I recognize. We grow by acknowledging and doing better in the future, not by erasing our own past. Spidey fan, just own it. Own it. You've thought
That's what
the
Spidey fans
yeah.
doing.
Yeah. No, but I mean just own the comments
Own
before
your
that.
grossness, own your
What
the
was it
potential
gross?
that no, but like the potential for
Yeah.
whatever a
Yeah.
Spidey fan was worried
You're
about being.
yeah.
Eh, I appreciate self knowledge is power.
Sure. Jasmine says Ian
Yeah.
was great till he suddenly was mad at Wendy only. Like, we get it that you're grieving, but where's that energy for Kevin? Is it because he was useless? Haha. Anyway, Frankie is such a creep and his death is satisfying AF.
Okay.
Thomas Baker, Frankie the perv dies tonight. Frankie dies tonight. Frankie dies tonight. Jazzy
Spoilers this evening. Yes. Frankie.
Jazzy Boo! Frankie was creepy and an asshole, so he
Mhm.
needed to go. Ian was cool with till his girlfriend got pinhead. Amph Bubbles, definitely Frankie. He was a creep, and I think everyone was better off with him going. Nicholas Wetzel, Frankie, he just never stops with his shenanigans. Ashley's line pretty much sums it up. You graduated like 2 years ago. Then after she and Ashlyn are gone, he moves on to Julie at their funeral, who is about 2 years younger than the Ashes. Also, dang, learn to use your rear view mirror or peripheral vision, man.
He was in his own world. He was self-consumed.
Blue Box, Frankie, he wears a beret. So does Julie. They both
I
have
mean,
their berets on.
oh my God. And so does Tim Burton.
Maybe, yeah, maybe they would have, they could have like talked about their shared love of berets at the funeral.
You know, Madonna wore a beret a few times.
Oh, and the what was it like American?
Well, no, I mean, yeah, she
Was it
wore.
American Life? What is
I
it?
think that, yeah, in American Life, she had
Yeah,
like, I don't know if it actually
it
qualifies
was like a
technically
Che
as a beret.
Guevara
Yeah, like
beret.
that kind of
Yeah.
thing. She had that, but she also wore one in one of her tours, and she did one of the most obnoxious things I've ever seen her do, where she dances out on stage and just goes, "I am wearing my French beret," and I'm like, "Oh no, Maddie, turn it down.
Did
I
she?
love you," but she
No
did
Madge.
no
Did she have
match.
like did she have like a bag of baguettes as well? Or-
She had one weird thing in the reinvention tour where they had a screen behind her. It was a tableau with the Eiffel Tower in it, and she came out wearing not a beret, but like a net around her head, and all her hair hung down on either side. I'm sure you can see it. She looked kind of like a Cocker Spaniel,
Yeah.
and she was dressed in like a black and I think it was a black and white striped like top with like very tight black dancer slacks, and all of the dancers came out and danced in this little vignette. They did "Don't Tell Me" with the original cowboy influence instrumentation, which I thought was a weird
Mm,
decision to be going yeehaw and kicking while you're all
yeah.
dressed up like mimes. Anyway, go on. I'm sorry. Long tangent. Long tangent.
Matthias Egeman, Frankie ass cheeks, really not a fun guy. He is so creepy. Other creeps doesn't want to be with him.
Other creeps doesn't want to be with him.
Finest winter cold, hard choice, but Ian. I have a problem with his callous behavior towards the pigeons. His boss told him to get rid of the pigeons, and he interpreted that as kill them. He needed to
Yeah,
go. I would elaborate more on his ungrateful attitude towards Wendy, but I won't. Personally, I feel more unsafe with Ian than Frankie.
yeah.
My chunky Geordie, while Cheeks caused the accident, he's just a stupid bleep or bleep, but McKinley turns into a sadistic killer. Zero fucks given. Frankie was harmless. Ian was a low-key psychopath.
Wow.
Whale Wolf. Ian is 100% validated on his reasonings. RIP his girlfriend. Erin was easily the best girl.
Oh my God.
A lot of Erin love going on
Yeah,
here.
my loved one, but I love that it's my loved one got stripped away from me, so therefore I deserve to destroy whoever I want. Oh my God.
Silent Saturn. Frankie. That's it.
Okay.
Grant Dempsey. I would probably vote for Frankie if I remembered him more clearly, but I don't, so I gotta give it to McKinley.
Nice.
Marcus Connerly, Frankie didn't get enough of a death. Such a nasty sex pest who should have gotten slower and more painful. Ian, while
Mm,
inconsistently written, did lose his girlfriend right in front of him. He was acting on emotion more than using his brain.
mm.
And Greg Smith says Ian with the Kmart version of Charlie for Always Sunny.
Oh,
What does that
is that
mean?
what he is? Like Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Ian was the Kmart version of Charlie for. Did I read that right?
Huh.
Ian was the Kmart version of Charlie for Always Sunny.
It's an interesting point of view. I'm trying to think. I mean, he's got similar eyes to Charlie Day, and he's got
Maybe it's the
high
voice?
hair
Yeah.
like Charlie Day. So I guess the Kmart version of, I mean, also violent. Well, I mean, yeah, because
Yeah.
Charlie's gross and misled. Is he ever
Yeah.
violent? I can't remember.
Also, Grant Dempsey is in the chat with us as well, and he is saying that it occurred to me after I voted in this poll, wasn't McKinley killed by an actual cherry picker?
Hey! Oh
Yeah,
my
there you
God,
go.
neither one of us pointed that out. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's awesome. Thank
Hmm.
you. Thank you, Grant Dempsey.
Okay, so I, already telegraphed this, but I'm gonna nominate Trevor mostly because like
Mm.
he just sort of like disappeared from the movie unscathed. Like he just sort of decided this is too difficult for me. I'm out. And she called him out on it. It's just like, you know what? Like you just want everything to be like sunshines and lollipops, as is the song at the end of the movie, and rainbows and puppy dog kisses. And if anything is anything but that, it's just like
Yeah.
this is too difficult for me. I gotta piece. And yeah, I think that there was a more interesting finale to the movie if she, baked him a poison pie in there. Not
He
not literally, but yeah, he needed to come back and there needed to be justice served.
he, he just wants everything that Judy Greer wants in Halloween 2018. That she's like going out. The world is not a horrible place. The world is a wonderful place with angels and cupids and valentines and whatever the fuck she says. Um, I'm really at a loss here. I can't. Okay, I thought I had like a bunch who I thought would like deserve to die, but
Well,
after
can
talking
I
about them,
I
go for it.
just want to mention that there are people in the chat that are asking about the therapist.
See,
Specifically,
yeah.
let me find it here. Who said it? Oh yeah, Amethyst. Did we have any takes about Rose's therapist? And then Brianna said, "Oh my gosh, therapists in horror, why are they awful?" So,
Well, this is the thing. I asked my sister, who is a therapist, because she always hates the depiction of therapists in
yeah.
not just horror, any movies.
Hmm.
She says there's always malpractice, like just on the horizon. They always like do what they're never thinking about what their face is doing. Huge judgment, huge like whatever. I think it came up when we were talking about Orphan. And
Hmm.
I asked her, random Q, do you remember how you responded to the therapist, to the protagonist in Smile? And she messaged me back during the pod. She said, I remember I thought she was okay for a bit, but I got weirded out when she showed up at our house to talk with her. But then she was evil, so it made sense. Does that answer your question? And that's why I don't know if I want to choose her because, yeah, I mean, she made a mistake. I don't think she made the mistake that Margot Martindale made in Orphan
Did
because
you did you call in a lifeline?
no,
You did
no,
this isn't Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You
no,
gotta have your own opinion.
no, because I was curious. I wanted I sent it before we started recording. She sent it to me during the pod. I didn't know that was
Okay.
going to happen.
Yeah.
But so anyway, but no, she's not what Margot Martindale did, which was complete bullshit in Orphan.
Yeah.
She made a mistake, certainly like showing up, but also when the spouse is raising concerns and everything like that, like maybe it's best not to appear like a united front and like you're opposing your client because, that's exactly what it looked like. But she did reach out in the phone call. We know that was really her. Oh, because that was
Yeah.
another thing. If there's anything that I could have done without in this movie, it was actually because it doesn't lead anywhere.
Yeah.
It's a moment that I've seen before where like you think the therapist is sitting across from you and then you get a call and you find that that's the real therapist and the thing reveals that it's the thing. And then it
Yeah.
just kind of charged her in her own home, grabbed her face, and then we just kind of cut to the next scene. And I was like, so it just wanted to fuck with her? Like, why did we abandon that? Like, why didn't she get out? Or why didn't we just see her screaming in an empty room? Why weren't
Yeah.
we relieved? Why did we end on like the highest octane thing happening in the scene? And then I don't know. So anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want the therapist or because I'm also, you know what? I we didn't get any redemption for Greg, the the brother-in-law, because he really was like super shallow and completely
Yeah.
out of touch. Like even while he's like trying to stand at the door and keep Rose away from his wife, obviously his wife wanted to talk to her sister, so he
Mhm.
obviously wasn't dialed in there. And he was the one who went on about like, oh, why bother helping people unless you're gonna get filthy rich from it? Just a
Yeah.
piece of shit. And I agree with Rose. So I'm wondering because at least because he never apologized for anything,
Yeah.
and at least the therapist was reaching out and trying to make amends by going on the phone and not like, ding dong, I'm gonna invade your space again. So I'm gonna do Greg. Greg, whatever his fucking last name is. Does he have one? I'm looking on IMDb to see.
Well, he
Um,
also took the bruschetta out of the oven too
yes,
too early.
before, yeah, too early. She told him not yet. And
Yeah.
oh, as a Virgo, I felt that one. And
Was it bruschetta? Is it pretentious to say bruschetta and not
I
bruschetta?
say bruschetta, so yes, you're
Yeah.
very I don't know. I don't know what's
Okay.
correct. I think
I
everybody
worked
says
in
it
an
the wrong
Italian
way.
restaurant once, so
Oh,
it's
okay. And it's also, but isn't it also Greek?
bruschetta. I mean, I'm sure it's.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everybody's
but
claiming it, but
yeah. Mhm.
whatever it is, it's
Uh,
delicious and I love
Apparently
it. And
they
he
don't have
ruined it.
they don't have last names.
Yeah, he's
They
just
weren't.
Greg.
Yeah, they were just Greg. Just Greg.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just Greg.
just
Because,
Greg.
and I mean, I probably won't win because he's not that memorable. So unless people actually like stream this on like Paramount Plus or Netflix or have the disc at hand and watch it before they vote.
Hmm.
But I gotta vote my conscience and my heart. So
Yeah.
that's he was the one who occurred to me, and he was the one who like doesn't have anything redeemable about him. I thought about, but I don't want to do that. I thought about the mother, but I don't want to do that. And because I don't know what her story was, you know? She was just an addict,
Yeah,
you
that would
know?
be
And
very irresponsible of you,
no,
Edward.
and also somebody, yeah, and somebody with like, we try to kill people, but not really, and I don't even want to not really kill her.
Very irresponsible.
Looked like she already was having a bad enough time as it
There
was.
was
Like I don't,
vomit on the
she
bedspread. It
doesn't
just was
need,
not
she
good.
doesn't
Yeah.
need me killing her. She had it bad enough, and then
She had it taken care of. It's
she
okay.
had
She
it
she was
taken care
she
of.
was well on top of it. Don't you worry.
And I also thought about the guy, the first guy who evaded it and everything like that and freaked out because like, don't you bring it back to me? But do I know what I would do in his situation? No, I don't. So I can't
No.
kill him either.
Yeah.
Even though
Yeah.
moral quandary, I lean a little bit more in Rose's direction, but
Mm. All
So let's
right.
just do Greg. Greg, I would have enjoyed that death. That would have been great.
The Battle of the Bows.
Yeah.
Right. So you can either pick Trevor or vote for Greg. Trevor versus
Well,
Greg.
they're also the
And
two least interesting characters in the entire movie.
they're very uninteresting for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, you can head over to Patreon. The poll will be open for the public, but if you do go over there and feeling a little generous, why don't you support? And then you can come and join us on these live stream recordings. You can also go on to our Instagram at the Cherry Picker Pod, where the poll will be up every week. And then also here on YouTube, it's posted. So if you are listening, head over to YouTube and subscribe. And also, if you're watching us on YouTube, the RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below if you prefer to listen to us anyway, because you don't like
Yeah,
looking at our faces and all that,
yeah,
which,
yeah.
is always a possibility. Edward, where can they find you on the Soch?
I rarely show my face on my Instagram, but every now and then I do. So if you don't want to see it, don't follow me on Instagram at Edward is Truth, one word, traditional spelling, no spaces. But if you don't want to see my damn face, but you still want to like know what I think. Go to Letterboxd and follow me there. Same thing. Edward is truth. One word, traditional spelling. How about you, Zach Cherry?
Main YouTube channel, ZACK space CHERRY. I am on Instagram at retro bitch face, all one word. Twitter is Zach Cherry 8, same spelling of Zach Cherry. And also Letterboxd, Zach Cherry. I think there's two accounts there. Just go to the one that actually has activity on it. Anyway, that is all we have for you in Smile. Next week, obviously, we already talked about it. It is Companion, which is the Patreon choice episode. Thank you very much to Sean for picking that one. But anyway, thank you for watching and listening, and we will be right back.